Good. So we have tour guides scheduled for you that will take you around.
How are you?
Use your umbrella now.
Hello, my name is Kenton Chance of iWitness News, and I'm here at Cape Coast Castle on Cape Coast in Ghana. And it's the third African country that I'm visiting such a site. The first time was in Senegal, and then about 6 months ago in Angola. The story of what took place at this castle during the slave trade is one of pain and immense suffering, and one that I am not equipped to tell. So therefore I turn you over to a tour guide.
1860, slavery ended. So they used this structure as a colonial administrative center. And the British controlled the castle up to the time of our independence on the March 6, 1957. Then we moved the British out of the castle. So the castle, as of 2023, it is 358 years old. My name is Mark Tete. I am a senior museum monument education officer. This is historic Cape Coast Dungeon, or people call it Castle, which was built in 1665 at the peak of the transatlantic slave trade. And it kept about 1,300 slaves at a time. 1,000 were men, women were 300. The state minimum too is to about 3 months.
And about how many slaves passed through this place?
Estimate about 3 million passed through this castle within a period of about 200 years. And out of that, about 60% survived, and 40% died. Please come this way.
That is a real experience now.
So all these dungeons was designed for 1,000 slaves, but they divided the dungeons into 5. Each had about 200. Where your colleagues are, it was for 200 people. Second 200, this is 200 in that order. 200 in each space like this. No light. I'm coming. Hello, the time. So no light. That is why I off the lights briefly. So hosts like this serve as their windows. So some became blind. They didn't give them toilet facility, no urinal. So they were compelled to go to toilet on the floor. They would urinate. And they're here for 3 months. They were not sleeping because there was nothing to sleep on. We have some trenches on the floor. They built it as their urinal so that when they urinate, it will run through into the sea. They eat once in a day, sometimes twice. And they were not cleaning the floor. So all that you see now is solid waste. Because the original floor is made of bricks. Because they were not cleaning the floor, the waste pile accumulated. It covered all the original floor. So many died. Those who died were thrown into the sea. But where we are gathered now, on top of us, British went to build a church. The church was Anglican church. So they preached Bible at the top, and Africans were here suffering for months. So first, second, third, let's see the last one. Oh, sorry. If you were a king, we call let's listen to
It's true. It's a harrowing experience. You don't like it.
So if you look at this floor, this is all waste. The original floor is made of bricks, red and yellow bricks. So out of the 1,000 slaves, by the time they were ready to go with him, some died, but those who survived, they would bring them from the darkness. They chained them. Then there was a hole at the back of this white cloth, round hole. British call it a tunnel. So they fought the Africans through the tunnel. They'll take them to the door of no return, that will go finally. But the tunnel was blocked when the trade was over. That was done to signify the end of the slave trade. But when we go outside, we shall see part of the hole. When they bring them from the darkness to where we are gathered now, we got to stay here for over a month. Some were sick and weak. So when they got here, the sick ones, they will select them. They will send them to that small room to go and wait temporarily, just to allow the stronger ones to go. That was why they created this window. Because then no light. So this was created for them to see who's sick and who's not sick. So they call this place selection room. This is a shrine which was not here. Only that it was around this part of the land for British kids, for the natives. When the British came, they built a castle. They stopped the natives from coming closer to pray. The natives came for the shrine to their community. So when the British left, they brought it back here. These ones were made by the African Americans who visit the castle, the flowers. Now this yard, they call it the graveyard. They bury a lot of people in the yard. And we have 3, yes. 3 and 1. The last one, the one separated, single one, is an African called Philip Kweku. That man, his father worked with the British. So they took their son to England, 3 of them, Philip, Thomas and William. When they got to England, the 2 died, but Kweku survived. The British trained him as a pastor and a teacher. He came back to the country, then Gold Coast, as a pastor and a teacher, preaching on top of the dungeon to misraise children. He worked for the British for the rest of his life. Died October 17, 1816, 75 years of age. So because he worked for them, the honor given him was a barrier. The 3 here for British. You can see that even the dead were separated. So racism we see today is not a new thing to me. And the first one is also somebody called C.B. Whitehead. He was a soldier. He died in 1812, 38 years old. The middle one was the wife of her. This was a woman called Letitia Elizabeth Lendon. And the other one was called George McLean. So Letitia was the wife of George McLean. McLean came here in 1830. It was McLean who came to close the tunnel. Before McLean came, Africans were going through the tunnel to the door of no return. He blocked that. He stayed in the building 17 years. Mosquitoes killed McLean. But McLean came in 1830. He didn't come with a wife. So like six years, McLean wasn't going to, no, there was no anti-malaria then. So about 6 years, McLean wasn't going to England. So the wife came to visit, which was Letitia. And she died within 2 months on arrival. Somebody said she was killed by mosquitoes. The other one said because McLean stayed longer, McLean wasn't going to England again. McLean has gone in for an African woman called Miss Bannerman from Accra. When Letitia came to hear of that story, out of jealousy, she took some poison and died. But the last one said the woman that McLean was going out with, they said the woman was a beautiful woman. The woman wanted to have McLean forever as the husband. So when Letitia came, the Ghanaian woman posed as a servant, then poisoned Letitia so that she would get McLean forever as a husband. So these are the theories surrounding the death of McLean's husband. So till now, McLean's wife, so till now, we don't know what killed her. But she died. She died 10 years before the husband died. She was 36 years. We have a cell here. Within the dungeon, they created cells in the dungeon. So we are entering this one. Please, let's go inside. Don't assume you are not talking. We are going inside. We are entering a cell. Don't assume you are not tall. Bend very low. Bend low. I don't want you to crash your head. We are entering a cell.
There's no air.
There's no air. It's so coffee.
And there are only like 15 of us in here.
How many people here?
This one is a condemned cell for some of the slaves that they kept back in the dungeons. And because they maltreated them, some were fighting British. They wanted freedom. Those doing that, especially men, were brought here. The cell has 3 doors. A door here, we have removed this one. Another door in the middle, the last one. So they'll bring them here. They will lock the 3 doors. No food, no water. Then they kill them. Starvation. But today we are not dying. We are going outside. But keep your heads low.
So they stay here until they die.
Till they die.
Wow.
So where don't they gather them?
So that they were eating each other.
No, they said they keep them here till they then kill them.
No, so they
So if you look straight, you can see where the shrine is. We were down there a few minutes ago, and I said when they're ready to go with the slaves, they don't bring them outside. They go through a hole. So there's a big hole down here to the door of no return. There's a big tunnel this way to the exit. So I'll give you a minute for some pictures. Quick one. Minute. Because we are going to the door of no return finally. Let's talk quickly about how the slaves were captured. Europeans captured some physically using guns. They worked with some black people to get other black people. Some black people called slave raiders, like armed robbers, were supplied with guns, sardine, tobacco, mirror. So they were going raiding villages, bringing some men and women to the white. Some of them were told that they were taking them to abroad for a good living. They gave themselves out. But the last one that brought majority was ethnic conflict. We have to know that before Europeans came to Africa in 1471, which was the Portuguese, then there was nothing like Ghana or Nigeria, Togo, Burkina Faso. We had kingdoms, empires, African states. So the kings and queens would fight each other over boundaries, sometimes over land. And they go to wars with weapons like bows and arrows that they made locally. When they go to war with these things, after a long fight, one tribe will lose. The losers will be taken as domestic slaves. Those people, they could marry, raise free children, they could acquire property. Later, they were integrated into the family system. They were not kept in buildings like those. They were also not taken to Europe and America. They were free people in society. And I believe that system of slavery has been with humans from time immemorial. And when Europeans came, the situation changed. Quickly, they capitalized on the African system. They introduced guns to the chiefs. We know the power of the gun. They added the whiskey, mirror, tobacco, and they were given to the Africans, headed by the chiefs. And they were to pay, but the system was better. And they think it was free. It was not free. And because the system was better, the Europeans, Africans will organize themselves using their guns to go and fight the other people. So there were conflict among the tribes. So the more they go to the war, the end result was to get people like us as prisoners of war in exchange for European goods. This was the system 500 years ago. If you look at what is happening globally, to me as a tour guide, I think the system is the same.
It's the same, yeah.
Nothing has changed. The system is still working to their advantage.
Same thing they're doing in Congo and all of those places.
Rebranding.
I'm saying the system has not changed. The global system architecture has not changed. The bigger ones are bullying, killing the smaller ones, taking their everything. But they will tell you there's war, there's conflict. But ask yourself, where are the weapons coming from? Who is bringing the weapons? That's the question. But they talk about peacekeeping. They don't mention the weapons. It's about time we call a spade, not a big spoon.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Wakanda forever. Yes.
So this is part of the passage. This tunnel started from where the shrine is, where I said was blocked. So underneath, they don't bring them outside. They walk through to the exit. So this was where they monitor their movement as they go to the ships. So look at the hole, then we go to the end. Let's go this way.
There were two men and they didn't have tears. You know, imagine you be in that place for maybe just 1 month or 2 weeks. You can't have to go to bed.
Let's enter inside.
There's no way to move.
It's like
So this is the end of the tunnel, ladies and gentlemen. It was not blocked at the time, it was open. It's about 80 meters long, that's the length. They walk from there. When they got here, initially this was the exit. But the sea was coming in. So they blocked that side. And this became the new entrance. So from here, instead of them going this way, They come out this way. So let's move on, please.
And the annoying thing is that they still use Africans as the slaves to build this thing.
Yes,
Build your own.
yes.
Build your own graveyard. Can you marry by your castle?
This is also a cell. But a cell, this cell was designed for some of the female slaves that British wanted to rape, but the women refused. Europeans didn't come to Africa because of mosquitoes. They didn't come to Africa with their wives because of mosquitoes. Mosquitoes killed them to the extent that they named the coast of West Africa the white man's grave. So only men came. But the men who were in the castle could not stay alone for longer time without women. So they raped the African women. But sometimes, if they wanted to rape, some women would be fighting. Those who refused rape, mother, come here a bit. They will bring them here. They are at the door. They will lock them. They will stay for 1 week for refusing rape. And they were doing that for other women to see, so that tomorrow, when they get closer to you, you don't fight with them. There's a hole there. That was their toilet. Give it to them. They pass food and water through this place once in a day, sometimes twice. We are going to the door of no return. But 2 groups are there. So let me explain what happened there. We get them together. This is the door of no return. But the original one was very small and narrow, which was designed for one individual. So they would go through one after the other. That was it. And the door was expanded into this during colonial time. And if you go through the door of no return during the time of slave trade as a black person, one, you will lose your identity, you will lose your culture, respect, and everything. From here, some of the slaves were taken to North America, United States, places like Jamestown in Virginia, North and South Carolina, and all the original British states in America, 13 states, they passed through this castle. Some went to England, Liverpool, and Liverpool was the biggest slave hub in the whole of Europe. Others also went to Bristol, Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, including Barbados. And those who went to Brazil, they were taken from Elmina Castle. Some Brazilians were taken from Angola, East Africa. If we talk about Suriname, Dutch, Guyana, Curaçao, they also passed through Elmina Castle. And interestingly, Brazil received the largest number of slaves from Africa. Brazil got 47% of the entire slaves from Africa. And Brazil is the 3rd largest black population in the whole world, outside Nigeria and Ethiopia. Now, this is one of the female dungeons. Women were 300, so 150 here, 150 there. And women shouldn't have been taken as slaves. But because they were taken to go and work for Europeans on their farms in the Americas and Caribbean, they took 300 at a given time so that they would go and breed for them, they would go and give birth. So when the women got there, they forced them to multiply in their millions. They used them to work. They didn't pay them anything for 400 years. In these dungeons, they treated them like a man. They go to toilets, they will urinate. At the end of every month, women pass their menstruations in addition. They didn't allow them to bath. They didn't clean their teeth. They did not give them sanitary pad for 3 months. But upon all this treatment given to them, Europeans still raped the women. So anytime they wanted to rape, they leave upstairs, they'll come down, open this or that, they'll look through, they'll select a woman to their bedroom. Those who denied them sex were punished in a cell. Some got pregnant. So the one who got pregnant were not taken away when they were ready to go. They built a house for them in Cape Coast Town. They stayed there. They gave them everything. When they gave birth, they would either free the mother with the child forever, or they'll take care of their mother and the baby to about 10 years. And the children who were light-skinned were brought back to the castle for education. And they became interpreters. And because they were light-skinned children, they gave names to them. That is how come along the coast of Ghana, where the whites settled, there are light-skinned people. And some of the Ghanaians having some European last names, like Van Dyke, Van der Poy, Da Costa, De Souza, Johnson, Compson, Ferguson, Robinson, Peterson, Morrison, Youngson, Williams, all the Simpsons, Morrison. Did you see the door of no return? Did you see the door of no return written at the top?
Yes.
That means you are, the door of no return. Sorry, Ghana community.
So I talk about the door of return, no return already. And I said I showed you where they were taken from. They were taken to. At the time, the sea was all over here. This construction was done about 3 years ago. So the sea was all the way to this place. So they would walk through the door, they would descend the steps, they would enter boats, then they go to the bigger ships. That was the end. Because the door was narrow, this was a staircase that English used. They didn't want to go through the small door. When we came, we saw door of no return. By going, there's the return. The return is symbolic. It came only in 1998. There was a ceremony in Ghana called Emancipation 98. During that time, skeletons of 2 enslaved Africans, they called them Samakasi and Madame Cresta, were exhumed from New York and Jamaica. They brought their remains to Accra. Accra to where we are gathered today. They were in 2 caskets. The door was open. They were taken through to where I show you the graves for a short African funeral ceremony. From there, the remains of the 2 people were taken to a town called Asemanso for reburial. That's why we have a slave river. When the slaves were captured, they walked from all over West Africa. When they got to Asemanso, they had a stopover. Then they were made to bath for the last time on their own. They were given food to eat to regain some lost energy because they might have walked for about 6, 7, 8 months, sometimes a year. So they had a stopover there. From there, when they arrived in the castle, they were not given the chance to bath on their own until they were taken to the Americas and Caribbean. So because remains of 2 people came, and are with us on our soil buried 98, that is why we have renamed the door of return. So ladies and gentlemen, on this note, we are going to return. But let me end the tour so that when we return, we go out finally. So don't forget the castle, as it is now, it is 358 years old. British built it 1665, but they built it using black people. The construction went through stages. It went through demolition, addition, demolition. They built it over 100 years using black people. They designed it for 1,300 slaves at a time. 1,000 were men, 300 women. They stayed 2 weeks in the dungeons to 3 months because of their ships. 1860, slavery ended. So this structure was used as a colonial administrative center. Now, Cape Coast Castle is the youngest castle among the 3 because Elmina is the oldest. The one in Accra is second. This is the last one. This one is now a UNESCO heritage site. That was done in 1979. Now, as we toured the castle this rainy day, brothers and sisters, it ought to be in everlasting memory of the sufferings of our ancestors. We pray that those who died here should rest in perfect peace. And those who loved return should find their roots, especially black people. And may man never again, and I repeat, never again, be given that opportunity to commit such atrocities against his fellow human being on this earth. On this note, my name is Mark Tete, Nazen Fatou. Thank you for coming.
Has there been a lot of restoration?
Yeah, we several times. The major restoration was done in 1960 by our first president called Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Because after slavery, colonial time for 100 years, English abandoned all this practice in a way because they were only taking resources out of the country. So when we gained independence, over 100, it was in a very bad state. So Kwame Nkrumah gave it a contract. They did restoration, major restoration. That's why we see the building as it is today.